and your keyboard took control of the camera again.
Why would that happen?
Because you're fucking loud.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 508 of the Dead Robot Society. I'm Terry Mixon. Joining me, Paul E. Cooley. How you doing, man?
I live, I breathe. I'm no longer fighting audiobooks.
Until Audible kicks it back to you for whatever reason.
Terry needs to shut up. Terry needs to kiss my hiney.
You know, I think you should write that song, Kiss My Hiney.
Kiss my hiney. Yeah, it's Rule 34. It's already out there somewhere with a porno attached to it.
Hell, that doesn't even have to be Rule 34. I'm sure that's, fairly, standard.
Yeah, pretty much. Anyway, so I got Derelict Destruction published up in my store, the audiobook for folks to download and do their thing, and gave my patrons a coupon code yesterday.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've sold about 8 or 10 copies so far, and waiting on Audible to get their shit together. So they will hopefully get that rolled out this week. I hope.
Wait a minute. This is Audible. They don't do anything in a week. It takes a couple of weeks at least for this to happen. So
it may take a while depending on things. I've had them, they clear things in 3 days sometimes, and then it can take 5 to 10 depending how backed up they are. But anyway, regardless, Destruction, I'm done with it. Going to start the podcast soon, and I'm finally back to working on Evolution. Finally. So
how many words along are you in Evolution?
69,000, I think now.
So about halfway. About halfway.
Actually, I think I'm about 3/4, nearing 3/4 mark.
That's a little short for you.
No, not really. It's short compared to.
I'm being a jerk. I'm being a jerk.
I think I'm ending the last quarter, but I think I've got another 5 to 10,000 before I get there. So, but the last quarter is going to be absolute freaking madness. So I'm looking forward to writing all of that crazy. It'll be fun. Looking forward to it. So I want to get that puppy done so I can focus on these other things. And I need to get back to a certain short story that I promised somebody. So I need to get working on that.
Yeah, that's kind of important.
Yeah,
time frame is sneaking up on you.
Yeah. And all this is going on while the day job is exploding. So yeah, it's been fun.
Timing is everything.
Timing is everything. Timing is usually the hell of it. So yes, I have never ever in my life looked forward to getting back and focusing on a story as much as I have after this. So there we go. That's all I got.
I published Hidden Enemies last week, so it's out in the wild, and I'm glad that I could finally take a breather from that. I'm writing a couple of short stories for a few anthologies, and then I'll pick up the next Glenn book when he sends me the first quarter. So things are smoothing out in a different way. I'm writing a new kind of short story that I've never written before, and it's challenging in new ways. I'm enjoying that. That's going to be a lot of fun to make it work. What else is going on? That's all I'm remembering off the top of my head. Just more things going on.
Now, that said, let's do an impromptu update on what's going on in crazy world of publishing this week.
Holy cow. Well, after the stuff we talked about the last time around on the live show, now Amazon has decided that they are going to end Create Space, which has been coming a long time, and that's where you've been publishing the print books. But they've decided that the end is here. And so they've started transitioning people over in waves, and it's got everybody's hair on fire. Everybody is freaking out.
There's a lot of panic in the streets. There's a lot of panic in Chicken Little going on. We've read several comments today. Both of us have that folks are finding it pretty easy to migrate. So hopefully it's not going to be too bad. The reason why people are freaking out about this are the ones mainly that have like 19 books in there that they've been selling, on a regular basis. And in that case, it is a pretty scary deal because if something screws up, who do you blame for it? Amazon did it. It's their fault. And what does Amazon do when they come with a refund because the book's all screwed up? So basically, you have to check all of your books again. So that's why it's a huge pain in the ass. My hope is that this is a good thing going forward. I have serious reservations about it.
Good, bad, or indifferent, it's inevitable.
Yeah.
It's happening whether you like it or not.
It was inevitable. Now it's already happened. It's just
the benefits going forward are probably going to outweigh the negatives. The sales are now going to be included in your KDP dashboard rather than having to go to CreateSpace to see it. It's going to be built in to the spreadsheets that you're already getting from Amazon. So it'll be a lot more concise in the way that it's working. Now, when you update a book, it's not going to take it off of publication like CreateSpace did. You couldn't update anything without having it go off sale.
Right.
That part is changing. With KDB Print, the new version doesn't go live till it's been all the way through the process, but the old version stays for sale. The one negative that I see that is also just an irritant is now when you order a proof, it has the word proof written across the cover.
Across the cover.
That keeps you from selling it as something other than a proof. That's fine. But it doesn't let you see the cover clearly. If there's a problem on that, well, then you've got a problem that maybe you didn't notice.
So by trying to fix one problem, they created another.
I'm not sure that it's a big problem. I suspect that the word is not going to cover that much, but it's just an irritant. It just is what it is. It's the way it's going to be.
Well, there you go. So anyway, if you've heard the big kerfuffle about this and seen the posts that range from tacit acceptance to absolute full-blown world plus dog panic.
How could Amazon do this to us?
I don't think you need to err on the side of panic. That's all I'm going to say. I think everything will be fine eventually. There may be some hiccups, but we'll get there in the end some way or something.
So it's gonna be fine. It's gonna get worked out one way or the other. People are already transitioning. Most people aren't having a problem. I don't anticipate that everyone is going to have a big issue. Right now, trying to log into the CreateSpace dashboard is probably hell.
Oh, God. Yeah. I did that this morning. It was like, yeah, it was fun this morning. So we'll see what happens. But yes,
I am rolling it out in waves. So hopefully not everybody's it's not going to be like hurricane evacuation in Houston where everybody gets on the road at the same time and tries to drive out of the city.
No, but that's what the Amazon web servers feel like today.
Which of course means that's exactly what people are doing.
Exactly what's going on. Yeah. Come 5 o'clock Eastern, which is 6 o'clock Eastern now, the servers are probably getting annihilated. So yeah, that'll be fun.
Personally, I'm going to wait a couple of weeks.
I don't see a point in doing anything until they send me a notice.
Yeah, they haven't even sent me an email yet. So
yeah, I'll worry about it.
Supposedly, when it happens, there's going to be a way to just go ahead and take your entire account and port it over all at once, which is a couple of button clicks. That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, that'll be nice. So I'm sure we will update our listeners and viewers when we actually go through the process so they know just how terrifying it is. That's the plan anyway.
It'll be good to have it done.
How many books do you have on CreateSpace?
All of them except the most recent one.
Okay. There we go.
Vellum helped me get past that, so all of them are out there.
Yay! Hooray! And all that garbage.
Yep. So let's see. We were talking before the show, talking topics.
And?
I've already forgotten.
Oh my God.
Remind me what we're doing because I've already forgotten.
Paul made the mistake of writing a diary entry, including a certain comment about how Derelict was released, and Terry wanted to beat him over the head about it.
Remind me of what it is, because I literally have already forgotten what we talked about. We record the intros to this show weeks after the fact, and I made the mistake of not writing down what we were talking about today.
Yeah, and you're after me because of the Patreon names. Hopefully I can cut this
Obviously,
shit
you realize by now that any shit I give you, I don't actually mean, because I don't trust my own memory at all either. You're much better at this than I am.
Somebody posted a review on
oh, that's right. We were talking about not going down the rabbit hole of comments.
Yeah, exactly. So This will be fun.
It's going to be definitely entertaining for everyone else too.
It's kind of like a proctology exam. So get ready to hear the snap of the glove. Here we go.
So, Paul, I was looking on Facebook and I saw that you got a review that torqued you off, that upset your game, so to speak.
Didn't upset my game.
It sounded like it upset your game a little bit.
Well, no, I think it's a fair complaint. I think it's a fair complaint. What Terry's referring to is, and you have to understand, this is not the first time I've heard this. I've got a slew of emails. I've got several Facebook comments. I've got, you name it. Basically, people taking issue with the way Derelict has been published. In other words, we're on book 3, and we're just now getting to solving some of the cliffhangers left in the first 2 books. And so people feel like there's been a bait and switch with not only the first 2, but the 3rd book, because lead you down that path to thinking the series is going to be complete, and it's not. So, like I said, I think it's a fair complaint, especially for people who are used to buying books, like Peter F. Hamilton stuff or something along those lines, where those 3 books should have been one. They should.
I don't agree.
At least as one piece.
I totally don't agree.
I understand why you say that.
You should write the kind of story that appeals to you. You're writing for yourself.
Yes, and it's not a question of writing the book, Terry. It's a question of when to publish the book.
If your name is Paul E. Cooley, you shouldn't be doing Brandon Sanderson's 500,000 word books.
No, at that point, I would split it. So, for instance, the first 3 Derelict books could have been one book.
How many words is that?
315,000.
That's a Brandon Sanderson novel. Let's not get into, Mistborn and it's 300,000 words or whatever it is.
But think of how much your complaints about the size of my writing that is getting longer. Just think about how much more you could hound me about it.
It brings me no pleasure to hound you about the size of your novels.
Uh-huh. Right. Right.
Seriously.
Right.
What I want to talk about. Go ahead.
The complaint is, why would I buy all the books in this series for $3.99, $4.99, $5.99, $5.99, whatever, times 5 to finally get the complete story when I could have just paid $9.99 twice? So
why do people buy David Weber's couple 100,000 word novels, of which he's got like 20 some odd in the Honor Harrington series at this point? Why don't they wait for the 5 trillion word omnibus?
That is a series that the books are self-contained, is it not?
No, I would say not. Certain plot arcs are dealt with in each of them, but the story is still not complete.
Well, a couple things. He's David Weber.
And you're Paul Cooley. Don't fall into that trap.
Well, all right. I am telling the story I wanted to tell. Okay. While I'm telling this story, at every stage, I've found that there is another piece to uncover. And I will keep going until I get this story told. But, I mean, it's too late to change anything now, and nor am I going to. It's going to come out the way it's going to come out. And I'm okay with that, because if people are invested in the series and want me to keep making it, then that's cool. I'll keep going until I hit the logical stopping place, which hopefully will be in shipyards.
Mm-hmm. By then, you'll have figured out another 3 novels to stick on the end.
Let's not even talk about that. Those will be parallel stories or something. Anyway, because I'm just that kind of jerk. The point is that the criticism is one of those. I remember when I got Ben Bova's The Exiles trilogy way back when. Each of those books was maybe $50,000. So it was released as one tome when it came out. And I was like, oh, it's got all 3 books in it. And the guy who recommended me to me was like, yeah, Ben Bova would never do that. And I was like, at the time, I kind of was like, okay, fine, whatever. I guess that's the way it's supposed to be done or whatnot. But it was a edition of all 3 books combined is what it was. So it's funny, but I don't think I would have bought the book for as much as it cost if it was just one book. The fact that it had all 3 in there and had some girth to it was the reason I felt okay spending that kind of money on it.
To be fair to the time frame that the Exiles books were written, the size of books back then were significantly smaller. That was before the traditional publishers started upping the word count.
Yes, that's before we got to the, your minimum must be 100,000 words for certain genres. For
sci-fi,
genres.
it was like 80,000, but something like that. Yeah,
I think for fantasy at the time, and I know this has changed. Maybe I'm full of shit, but as I remember it, for fantasy, it was at least 100K.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So it's funny how all that changes. Of course, now the board you have, like Tors is going after novellas very hard because they have figured out a way to market that and make it profitable for themselves. And other authors, indie authors, have done the same thing. But I don't know how they distribute and what they cost because I haven't looked at that. Because I've thought about putting out three short novels in the next year or so under my name, but or under Shadow Publications anyway. So there is a way to get traction with that and to make it happen, but I think you have to set people's expectations somehow at the front of it. I'm just looking at it from a consumer point of view. If each of these books was 180,000 words, like a Dresden book, it'd be a little bit different.
I don't know that Dresden books go that high.
Are you sure?
I'd have to look.
At least 130K.
I'd have to look to be sure. I don't think that they're close to the 200,000 mark, but I don't really know.
Anyway, regardless, each of those books is a big book.
Well, what I wanted to talk to you about that this sparked into my brain is you made the comment that you got something by reading a review. And my first comment was, why are you reading that review? Why would you do that to yourself?
It's funny. I saw the star level change on the author page, and I went, oh, okay. Let's see why it went down. And I went and looked. But the thing is, like I said, I get them from emails. I get them Facebook messages. People post in my author group. It is just, I'm getting assailed from all this. And when Marines came out, I got that complaint. I will never read your stuff again because it's just a setup. And my response was, it's called saga. That's what a saga is. But apparently people don't get that.
Here's the thing. No offense meant to the people that are saying these things. And by saying no offense meant, I'm going to say something offensive. Fuck those guys. If they don't like your stories, sayonara, pal. Hit the road and go find somebody else you like.
But again, it's not about the stories. It's about, I think, the publication. It's not about the story. It's about the mode or the process of actually publishing the book and that it's cut up.
If you didn't look at these reviews and these comments, you'd never know this was a problem.
I thought it was going to be a problem when I was working on Marines and when I finished Marines, and I realized, oh shit, what have I done? So I had to make the decision to either go back and I cut, God, I don't know, 50% to 75% of all the AI stuff and make it a different story, and then make it a different story on the other end when they get to Mira, cut about another 30,000 words of characterization and those kinds of things, cut it all up and still make it into, a decent Marine shoot 'em up. I could have done that. I decided not to because I decided the story was bigger and I wanted to incorporate these things because my brain was trying to tell me something about these AIs, and that's where I wanted to go with it. So that's how that story evolved. And had I not written Marines, I would never have realized this other overarching thing. So I'm going to continue doing what I do. It's just with these two series, the Black has been different, but I fucked people up with
in a totally different way.
Yeah, in a completely different way. So this is like my second experiment that's sort of been questionable. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are folks that absolutely love Derelict and understand that my writing process, or they garnered that from my other books, that I will have an idea and suddenly I just have to chase it. They understand that. And the folks who've been listening to me podcast for so long, they understand and they get that too. And I have a lot of loyal readers who are like, fuck those guys, like you, saying the same thing. But the question is not really one of whether or not I can satisfy unrealistic expectations. It's more a question about my process is, do I really need to start thinking about making the publishing process in such a way that I'm not making everybody confused as hell as to what it is I'm doing.
And that brings us to what we're talking about today. Letting other people into your creative decision-making process. And there's a whole lot to this particular subject. Not to put too fine a point on it, I said something rude about the people that disagree with you.
That's going to say something rude about me.
No, absolutely not. I don't mean to offend any reader, but we as writers don't write truly for the reader. We write because we want to entertain ourselves and we want to find people that like the works that we're putting together to do it. If you feel strongly enough that you're going to complain about something and rant and rave at the author, then you need to walk it off. You need to go find somebody else that writes more to your taste, because you've let someone else and the way they decided to do their stuff touch a nerve inside of you and get you all pissed off. So I mean that in the very kindest way. You need to walk it off. You need to go find somebody else that you actually enjoy reading and go read them. If you're pissed off at a writer, there's no reason to berate the writer. Like, he cares. Walk off. Do something else. The reading of the book is for you. The writing of the book is for us. And the intersection of those two things is where we find our readership. We as writers, we have to be very careful who we let inside the creative process. That whole thing about too many cooks spoiling the stew, it's true. If you let other people make you second guess what you're doing, then you're going to make a less great story than you could do. It needs to be you, not what other people think.
Okay.
Don't read those reviews. Just don't do it. Nothing good will come from reading reviews.
I have been a good boy. I completely agree with you. You shouldn't let that in the headspace. It's a question of this is 2 series I've got under my belt. These are lessons I've learned. It's more of a mea culpa for me, but I'm going to keep doing what I do. I just may have to change some of the ways that I do it. And maybe I'll be a good thing. Maybe it'll be a very good thing. But I want to see if maybe a book needs to wait a while I work on it more and keep it going. And I'll put out some shorter works in the meantime. So then I can work on, a couple of sprawling tales until they find their logical cliff. And then, put that out.
Other people have done very similar things. So there's nothing wrong with doing exactly what you said. I remember I'm a regular reader on Christine Catherine Rush's blog where she talks about her writing and her business stuff. And she recently finished writing a series of novels set in her recovery artist universe. She wrote 8 novels before she started releasing them because she didn't know where all the pieces parts were going to go. She wrote this sprawling tale that covers these 8 books and then found the places to chop them up into pieces parts and make them satisfying and began publishing them like once a month.
Right.
Once she had finished the whole process of doing it. So there's nothing wrong with holding off the publication and splitting it at a place there. she wouldn't have tried to publish them all as one big omnibus story, because that's fucking crazy shit.
No, that I would not do. I mean, how many people listening to us now have read Alan Moore's million-word novel?
Not me.
Not me. I won't even go near it. I saw like a couple of paragraphs of it and went, Jesus Christ, who the hell's editing this? Oh, wait, he is. It's wow. Long-winded is putting it mildly. Anyway, point is that yes. And I think I know Stephen King, for instance, spent a lot of time on a lot of these stories, novels that come out. Some of them, like The Stand, he wrote that over, 4 or 5 years. And I think the same thing goes with it, was a 2 or 3 year work. But he was working on other stuff while he was working on that book. So he was, switching it up. Maybe every couple of hours, maybe every week he would work on it a few hours, kind of tighten things up here and there, or whatever he would do. I can't remember what he did with it, but that's more or less how it worked. That allowed him to kick out these other books in the meantime and get them ready.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that.
Absolutely not. In fact, I think I've said this before. Most professional novelists of the old school, anyway, they got 2 or 3 books sitting in the drawer. And
I don't know that I'd agree with that.
Well, that may not be true anymore. It was true in the 90s and 2000s. I don't know if it's true anymore. But a lot of those folks with the old contracts would finish a book and basically set it aside until it found a home. Or they needed the revenue, and we're kind of like, all right, well, this one will go, and put that in there.
I suppose that could be true.
So I think we all have lots of works in progress. You just have to follow what we talked about in last week's episode, which is you have to finish.
I don't have any other works in progress.
I don't believe that for a second. You are so full of shit.
I've got one romance novel that I abandoned because I switched genres. I got one erotic novel that I abandoned because I switched genres. I don't have any other partially written works. I've finished everything that I've started writing.
So you're even more linear than I am.
I am. That is an aspect, I think, of what I'm sure is a mild case of OCD that I have. I do finish what I start. I am very linear. I could not even comprehend writing a novel, bits and pieces that I don't write linearly. That just is like madness for me.
I could do it. I can do it scene by scene kind of deal. But if I'm doing it as an entire chapter, switching back and forth, I don't think that will work too well. Unless it's a long chapter, really long chapter. But then if it's a really long chapter, chances are it has separate scenes. So I usually save myself some heartache there. Usually.
Honestly, there are times when we let other people into our creative loop that we probably shouldn't. Reading reviews is one of them. Taking too seriously reader comments about a work that's in progress. This is the last book that I'm using beta readers on. And I love these guys. They've been very helpful in getting my books to a point where they're good. But even back in the beginning, it was mainly helping me with typos and things like that, and saying, I didn't understand this section, or you weren't clear enough here. Where they started suggesting things might need to change as far as a plot element, I'd almost always reject it. It's this last book, I only accepted one comment on plot. And I feel happy with that. If I agree with something, I'll accept it. But sometimes it's best not to even know what other people think about it until it's out and published. And probably not even then.
I'm more concerned with my books that I make everything clear, which is why I have to make sure I've got beta readers who are paying attention to that. I don't think any of them have ever introduced, or this plot element needs to go, or something like that. I don't think I've ever had that comment.
So you haven't had somebody say, oh, you really should kill this guy here and blow this up. And then go, oh, maybe I should.
No. But more what happens with me is that happens during the writing process. As somebody will, offhandedly not know what I'm working on, and they will say something, and I'd sit there and I go, "Oh yes, I can use that," or something on those lines. But I don't let them. I don't take that. Some people are like, "Are you going to kill me? What are you going to do?"
It's bad enough when we introduce critical voice to our writing process. It's much worse when we introduce somebody else's critical voice to our writing process.
Yeah, the last thing I need is somebody else criticizing my work.
It makes you start doubting things.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
When you let critical voice, whether it's yours or someone else's, into your story, they change your voice and they change how you feel about the story. And that is damaging to our writing process, whether we realize it or not.
There are decisions you have to make that not everyone will agree with. If you split that right, you're gonna hopefully not tick off the universe. But really, it comes down to you have to make the decision of what science, what details you want to include, and why. And other people should not dictate that at all. That, oh, this has to match physics. Why?
If they want to write that kind of themselves out.
Say again?
If they want to write that kind of story, they should knock themselves out.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day. Have you ever you've gotten the comment before? You should write a book about X.
Yep, all the time.
Yeah, no, you should write a book about X.
That's exactly my response. It sounds like a great book. You should write it.
Yeah, sounds like a great book. You should write it. That goes back to everything else. Every once in a while, someone will say something. And again, it's almost always offhanded. It has half the time it does with another topic or something related to that series. Somebody will say something and I'll think that is a great idea. That is a great idea. But I need to change this. I need to change that. I need to change this. I need to change that. So it doesn't, people will inspire you. Movies will inspire you. Books will inspire you, but you need to make decisions about what you're going to include and what you're going to drop. And there can be times where somebody can say, this love thing just isn't working. Okay, yeah. So what do you do? Do you ignore him, Terry?
Every comment that I get along those lines, I listen to it. I think about it. And I say, is there merit here? Creatively, does that make sense to the story that I'm telling? Almost always I'll disregard what they say and do what I feel is best. Sometimes what they say sparks a thought of me going, okay, that would make things better. And then I'll use it. But that's a rare thing.
Right. It doesn't happen all the time. I think it just depends on what it is you're trying to do. But if you are trying to make sure that you've got romantic details and things like that, somebody may come back and say, change this, or this is unnecessary or whatnot. And that's stuff you need to think about. But at the end of the day, as we always say, it's your story.
When going forward, one of the things that I'm going to have is I've taken one of the beta readers is especially incisive in his commentary on plot and character, and I'm going to use. I'll still probably not do most of what he says, what he thinks about, but I like listening to his thought press about what I'm doing.
Yeah. I think that could be valuable. I got people for that.
You got people.
I got people. And I make use of them. I do make use of them. And I guess that's all part of it. It's all, getting it together, but, write the story you want to write and don't be afraid to tackle it. Because, man, I was terrified of what I was doing with Derelict for so many freaking reasons.
Think about how people used to write their books back before modern publishing. They would go out into the middle of whatever privacy they have, write the book, and then publish it. Send it off if there was actual traditional publishers, or publish it themselves if it was earlier than that. They didn't have people involved in their creative process other than their own mind. That is the way writing used to be, having someone else collaborate on it is a relatively new thing that I think dilutes an author's voice. And I realize that sounds a bit strident, but I don't think you should let other people in to the creative process.
Well, that's not the creative process. It's after the creativity has happened.
The specific thing you're talking about is after the creative process has happened. But to broaden out the subject, what we're talking about, so that it's not just all about you, too many authors are looking for approval of what they're doing rather than trusting in their own storytelling. They'll write something and they'll submit it to a critique group. They'll take it to a workshop. They'll take all the advice that they get and try to rewrite it and try to take other people's opinions into account and screw up the story that they're trying to produce.
Death by workshop.
Death by workshop. And other variants thereof. Death by your friends. Your friends are great. They've got great opinions. They shouldn't read your novel. Not until it's done. And for God's sake, don't share it with your mom.
Oh, anyway. Somebody actually posted in our Facebook group about workshop groups. And this is like the third time I've seen this, and probably this year, people asking about this. Establishing a writer's group, or, going to a workshop or whatever else. I've attended a lot of bad ones. I can tell you that much. Again, I think it just depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking on mechanics, that's one thing. If you're, I think, looking at incorporating or writing to a prompt, then I can understand that kind of thing to see what you do and how you did it. For a story itself, maybe to make sure people understood what it was and can explain back or weren't confused by something, maybe that kind of thing is very, very helpful too. But man, it can get kind of crazy if they start saying this plot element needs to be this or needs to be that. And you hear what I say with needs to be. It's more on the lines of, I thought, well, is that a good idea or not? Does it live up to the spirit of what you're trying to do? And is it necessary? If it's not necessary, don't do it.
I've gotten a number of emails from people that have read my works saying that they didn't understand something, or something didn't make any sense to them as far as how I executed it. And it's always stuff that comes in after I publish. The book's already out there. It's not going to change. And they're always the minority voice. You're never going to be completely able to escape befuddling somebody.
True. Very true.
It's just the way it is.
Very, very true. Especially if you leave landmines here and there and people can't remember them.
Hell, if you're like us, you write them and then you forget you put them there in the first place. Then you're the one wandering back over them.
Exactly. So that's also kind of a problem.
I know that Dean Wesley Smith talks about he used to go to workshops for doing short fiction back when he was starting out writing. And he decided that he wasn't satisfied with the advice that he was getting from these workshops. So he started mailing off the stories. He'd write a story a week and mail it off to various places that bought these types of stories. He would mail them on the way to the workshop, where he would present the story that he just mailed. It's already in the mail. There's nothing they can do to change it. It's out. And he discovered that the ones they hated the worst were the ones that sold the best.
Yes.
Go figure.
Yes. Yeah, we had that joke at Colorado State in the writing program was story by committee. Not letting that happen. And but at the same time, I'm one of those yokels who actually got a degree in this shit.
You poor bastard. I
still find it fascinating to be able to tear apart a plot, to be able to tear apart a character, to be able to look at what's said and what's not said, and catch that kind of subtext when it's there. And so I kind of translate some of that into my writing. Not everybody's going to get it. And sometimes but I'm always trying something new to inject and see if it works.
And you should be.
Every book I try something new, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, then I know not to do it again.
That's part of practice.
That is part of the practice.
I shared a Charlie Brown bit of comics on the Facebook yesterday. It was Peppermint Patty holding up a piece of paper going, "Why did the writer write this story?" in quote marks. And then look at him go, "Maybe he needed the money."
Maybe he needed the money.
Yes, indeed.
Which is very different than the Snoopy. Yeah. I think there was a mistake. You were supposed to send me lots of money.
Where's the $50,000? This was totally wrong.
That the restraining order thing.
Yeah, pretty much.
Don't write to the market. Don't do any of that shit. Just write the story you got.
For every person that complains about something you do, there are unnumbered others that read it, didn't have a problem with it, or loved it. You can, if you're crazy enough to read reviews, which you shouldn't read reviews or comments in anything online, because that way lies madness. I saw an author post a pair of reviews, one after the other, one a 5-star, one a 1-star, praising the author for doing something and condemning the author for doing the exact same thing
in the next review. Yeah,
exactly. So
yeah,
you can't please everybody. Just march on.
You're going to piss off somebody eventually, and tough shit. They don't want to read the work. Then fine, bye. That's just that is the way you've got to have it. So it's just it's a matter of figuring out what it is. If enough people are saying it, maybe there is a problem. But I would hope that folks that you trust have already told you that.
Have a trusted first reader to look over your stuff and give you their thoughts. But they have to be a reader, not another writer. Getting another writer is probably a mistake.
Oh God, poor Justin. Justin had a penchant for doing that. He'd read something and say, "Oh, you should really add this feature or this detail." You're like, I finished the fucking book. I finished the book. Okay. This is pre-flight check before it goes to press. I am not changing that right now.
The process that I'm going to be using going forward is as soon as I finish going through and getting the draft where I want it to be, I'm sending it off to the copy editor to have the copy editing done at the same time that I'm sending it to the first reader to give me their plot and story thoughts. Gotcha. That's how confident I am that most of it's not going to change.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. But like if you're writing a mystery, if you're writing, that kind of thing, you need to make sure that I would always have somebody back check me to make sure that, I haven't left out a detail or, hey, what's this Deus Ex Machina here? What is this doing here kind of thing? You never set that up or explained how that came to be. It just happened.
I discovered with doing this particular book that I just finished that going back to the beginning when I'm done, which is how I originally started doing this when I was writing the very first book, is I'd write the book, then I'd go back and I'd make a pass through it. That works best for me. Yeah. Because I'm going through this book going, there's this hook that I put there in chapter 3. That didn't go anywhere.
Cut it.
Actually, I left it. I may use it later.
You may lose it. Yeah, may use it later. There are so many things that you mention in passing in these books, and I do that too, where you have that ability to just climb on and go for it.
I did it with the first time I recall having done it was in either book 4 or 5. I plucked a character from the very first scene in the first book to use as a bad guy because I needed an asshole. And I'd provided an asshole in the very beginning. So it was very convenient to go back and bring the asshole back for a return visit.
Oh, I just love the way you're saying these things. No comment, huh?
None.
Bringing back a character in a series, even if they're just like a minor bit player, especially if they caught your eye when you're writing them, yeah, those are good people to recycle.
Well, I look at the things that I'm doing. When I'm looking for, I need to have a character do this sort of thing that's already there. I cast my mind back and say, did I ever have anybody else doing that? Can I bring this character forward and reuse them because there'll be a touch tone? there'll be a link from previous works to engage the reader and going, oh yeah, I remember that guy. I remember him.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a fun thing to do. It's a lot of fun. Very fun thing to do. Anyway, creative space, not letting anybody in, blah, 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 blah. Yes.
What other ways do we, as writers, allow somebody else into our creative space?
The genre game.
Expand a bit more on that.
What's hot in the genre at the time?
Oh my God. Writing to market.
Writing to market.
There's nothing wrong with writing to market if that's what you love. I write space opera, military science fiction. I love that shit. So I'm lucky that I can write to market and write the shit that I love at the same time. But I'm not looking for specific topic threads to write. I'm just writing the genre. Some people go out there and they look at the top 10 books and go, I really need to write this shifter romance because that's hot. I wonder what a shifter is.
Let me go read some shifter books. We'll see how fast I
can. Oh my God, it's like bestiality, but different. No, it's not.
If
no,
you were able
shifter romance is not bestiality. Don't ignore me. That's not what it is.
If you're someone who can write a book in a month, I won't name names, then you could realistically do that. But if it's taking you 6 months to a year, by the time that you finish your book, the market's changed already anyway.
Zombie necrophiliac erotica.
Yeah. Oh God. When we reached that point, I was like, yes, we jumped the shark.
Have we reached that point?
We reached that point a long time ago.
Have you read any zombie necrophiliac erotica?
No.
Okay, well, I was wondering if somebody had reached that point because I certainly haven't.
Oh no, there's been that has been out there. There's actually, and this was years and years ago. Actually, it was on the zombie survival panel, and John Schmar brought that up. I wish I was kidding. There was some collection of stories out there that were zombie erotica, and just the description horrified me. I was like, "No, I don't need to read this." No.
Years back when I was writing an erotica, there was an author that made a pretty big name for herself in the erotica community, writing stories about Bigfoot. And I haven't read any. I don't know anything about them, but apparently people love them. People love them. So Amazon went ahead and pretty much stuck that sucker in the ghetto. And I'm like, they do realize that Bigfoot's mythological, right? He's not real. He's not an animal or anything. It's really not bestiality, right? They know that, right?
No, you're boinking a bear.
Yeah. I don't know. There's some strange erotic out there. Rule 34.
Yeah, Rule 34. So if you haven't seen the Venture Brothers episode 2 or 3 with Lee Majors and Bigfoot, you got to do it. You just have got to do it. Oh, it's awesome. It is freaking awesome. Oh, it is.
They came back to that in the actual thing. They came back to that particular well at least twice.
It is exactly as bad as it sounds. It is exactly as bad as it sounds. Only it's worse. It's great. Anyway, go look that up. Maybe it's on YouTube out there, but there's some really funny stuff. You really should look that up. Anyway, what else? Now here's kind of the exception I have with this: short story anthologies.
All right.
So you see a writing prompt or category of story that they've got, and then suddenly you're thinking, oh, is there something that it's in my notes that fits this if I change it, or do I need to come up with an idea for a new story for this?
Writing for a specific story request is different than writing for market.
Yes, but that is also the deal, right? If you're trying to get a story into an anthology, then it's got to have whatever components that anthology says.
Anthologies are themed. You've got to hit the theme that they're looking for, or you're not going to be accepted.
Right, but then you're writing to the market.
That's not writing to the market. And the reason let me explain why it's different.
Explain it.
The reason it's different is because you're not looking for what's hot. You've found a potential place to write a story for, so you've got to write a story to fit the genre that you're submitting to. You've chosen, I want to be in Asimov's. I guess I've got to write a science fiction story. I want to be in the Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine. I better write a mystery novel. I better write a mystery short story. It's things like that. Short story aiming for a specific market is completely different than chasing the top 10 bestsellers.
This is true.
That is a completely different thing, and there's nothing wrong with hunting a market before you write a story, rather than writing a story and then hunting a market. For short stories, it's a different bird.
It does just depend on, again, what you're doing with the short stories. So, and what you're targeting for them anyway. But if you write a story for an anthology, there's absolutely no reason why you can't, if it doesn't make it to the anthology, there's no reason why you can't find a home for it elsewhere.
Absolutely.
So
I finished a short story for an anthology just a couple of weeks back. The driving factor for this anthology was the cover art. It had to be a science fiction story that had an element that fit the cover art. So I had to write a story that had spaceships doing what was on the cover as part of the story. At the very end of the story, I'm not completely cut off from everything else in the story, but basically the closing scene of them getting away involved the spaceships. Really had nothing to do with the plot.
Why did you do this?
Because the person putting the anthology together requested that I submit this particular story that I was telling him about. And I said, it doesn't have anything to do with the cover. He said, stick that at the end. And we're good.
Oh, no.
Okay, I can do that. But it is part of the story. It's not like they're escaping. All the shit has gone wrong and they're running away and the spaceships are chasing them. And that fits the cover art.
Okay, fair enough.
So that part works. It's not an integral part of the story. It's just the closing scene.
Just the closing scene. Okay.
And I probably would not have written this story for that anthology if the person putting it together hadn't specifically requested this story.
Gotcha.
Just goes to show you never know.
No. This goes back to the never say never thing again. I want to get back to doing that because if you can, I mean, I've got probably four stories that could find a home on Pseudopod, and probably at least one that could theoretically find a home on Escape Pod. So why the hell not?
Sure, absolutely.
So I would love to be able to write a few stories like that, and if they don't sell anywhere, then just put them out as a collection and be done with it, or Patreon exclusives. Whatever I want to do with them.
And this story, by the way, has a space minotaur in it.
You know, we'll talk about your imagination later. We'll do that in the post show before we begin the intro about your upcoming intervention.
Space Minotaur Cell.
Space Minotaur Cell. I just I got nothing. Why not a space walrus? Why does it have to be a badass like a Minotaur? Why can you have...
He's a bounty hunter. Can you imagine a space walrus bounty hunter?
Exactly my point, man. He'd have like a little scooter and then tusks as weapons. I think that would just be awesome.
It'd be like Jabba the Hutt writ small.
Yes, exactly. Or better yet, instead of you could use a possum.
Oh my gosh. Space possums.
Come on, think about it. He goes to the Cajun planet and has to barely escapes being eaten. I mean, you have all these things that you could do with that.
And by the way, I used a pun in this. I'll tell you about it later.
They'll tell me about it later. Am I going to roll my eyes?
Oh, you absolutely are.
Oh, good. Oh, good. So what we've gotten out of this discussion is don't let people in your creative space. Terry.
Let me be a bit more strident than that.
Uh-oh.
Guard your creative space like a mama bear.
or a space minotaur?
Or a space minotaur.
I'm sorry, I can't get this image out of my mind. It is so wrong. About your space minotaur. I
got to tell you that when I sent this off for copy editing, I got an unsolicited note back from the copy editor saying that she absolutely loved the story and thought it was delightful.
Oh, but still.
Speaking of which, you asked me to send you this story when I was done.
Yes.
So I need to do that.
Yes, you do. I'm still thinking Space Possum will over.
See, you're trying to get into my creative spaces. Good thing I've finished this story already.
Next up, Space Crawfish.
You know, I could totally see a space crawfish story.
I mean, this could be like a whole theme, you know? It's like a
mud bugs in space.
Yeah, Alien Bayou or something like that. You know, I think it'd just be absolutely hilarious.
I think you could write. There's those weird, spoofy kind of science fiction that's bizarro stuff. I think you could totally get away with writing space crawfish.
Space crawfish. This is so freaking wrong, dude. It's so freaking wrong. Anyway, all right, we learned that, and Terry wants to boink mythological creatures.
Whoa, hold up now.
First
if we're going to talk about boinking things, it's not going to be the Minotaur.
All right, so first it was the Bigfoot thing with a Bigfoot erotica. I think you were just making a mission about your secret kink.
I can give you the name. You can just surmise that it's me.
No, I don't. I know. I want
listeners. No. If you are looking for Bigfoot erotica, I suggest you go look for Virginia Wade. That's what I think you should do.
I am not putting that link in the show notes. It's not happening. It's not happening.
There's like 8 or 9 books in that particular series.
There's
probably more now that I think about it. It's been years since I participated in the erotica community, so I don't know how many books are in that particular series.
Possum alien porn. Just let that wash over you for a moment.
You know, you've dragged the show down into the gutter, my friend.
Well, technically, you started out with Bigfoot eroticas. I mean, where do you go from there, Terry? Come on.
There's only up. I thought there was only up, but apparently you go to like incestuous space crawfish at that point.
Now, DRS does not support the shaming of any, crawfish out there.
Have you ever actually gone and seined crawfish?
Gone and do what now?
Seined. You take a net and you scoop them out.
No, I've never done that.
My dad used to take me out as a kid and do that. That is quite an experience, let me tell you.
What, digging up mud bugs?
You don't have to dig them up. It's like a big net between 2 poles, and he'd find these places near the road that had water in there that had crawfish in it, and we'd go out in waders, and he'd be on one side, I'd be on the other, and we'd drag the bottom of the net across there and come up with a bunch of crawfish to dump into a bucket.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm with you.
I never ate them. He loved them. I was like, yeah, I don't think so. Thanks.
I'm okay with lobster, but mud bugs bug me for some reason. I can eat them in etouffee, but I'm not. No. Oh, just.
I guarantee.
Yeah, you guarantee. Why don't you get us the hell out of here before you find yet another tangent?
I think that's a great idea. Folks, if you've got an idea about how we should be keeping people out of our creative space, or perhaps even letting them into our creative space, send us a note at show@deadrobotsociety.com. You can send Paul a note on Twitter at Paul_E_Cooley. You can find us on Facebook at the Listeners of the Dead Robot Society Facebook group. You can find our videos on YouTube at youtube.com/DRS podcast. You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/DRS podcast. For as little as $1 a month, you can support this show and get access to extra cool stuff like the live episode that we're going to be recording this weekend. And of course, if you want to access the 500 plus episodes of audio goodness and go insane from having done so. We have to thank the good folks at podhoster.com who host all of the audio versions for your listening torture. Paul, our $10 patrons get the benefit of slapping tongue twisters at you. So why don't you go ahead and show them that you are better than they?
I don't know about that. We'll see how this goes. Let me take a look at these. Let's see. Now we have Sue start another new book. I dare you, Bayman. J.D. Barker.
The glove is down.
Corley Davison. Kelson 6. Oh boy, I asked for it now. Kelson 6th sick. Sheik's 6 sheep sick deal. Isabel Cushy. Rick didn't bring your witcha, did ya? Shaw didn't bring your witcha, did ya? I got nothing. Lisa Slack. Sandy Manpants. Cheryl Winters, Tracy Bodine, John Kilgallen, Devin Lee, Nathan, you cuss, I cuss, we all cuss for asparagus. Petty, Drew has more writing problems than Terry has cats. Bernardi, Chris Winder, Andre Conde Moraes, DJ Chamberlain, and J.R. Handley.
Thank you, folks, for supporting us. We deeply appreciate it.
Yes, thank you as always.
And with that, we are gone for another week. We'll see you next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.